He watched his maid eating in the rain. What he found out left him speechless. Marcus Thornton stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office, watching the storm unleash its fury on New York City. Rain hammered against the glass like bullets, blurring the skyline into abstract streaks of light and shadow. He checked his Rolex. 8:47 p.m. Most of his staff had gone home hours ago, but he remained, as always, married to his work. At 34, Marcus had built an empire that most men twice his age only dreamed of. Thornton Industries had made him a billionaire by 30, but success had come at a price. Every friendship had been a calculated move. Every relationship had hidden motives. His parents had taught him early that people were transactions, not connections. When his father's business partner had embezzled millions and disappeared, leaving their family temporarily destitute, 12-year-old Marcus had learned the most important lesson of his life: trust no one. He was about to turn away from the window when movement caught his eye. In the small courtyard behind the building, barely visible through the downpour, someone sat on a bench. Marcus frowned, leaning closer to the glass. Who would be insane enough to sit outside in this weather? He grabbed his binoculars, the ones he used to watch the stock market tickers on the building across the street, and focused on the figure. His jaw tightened. It was Elena Reyes, one of his household staff. The young woman sat hunched on the bench, her thin jacket soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face. She wasn't seeking shelter. She was eating something from a small container, her movements slow and deliberate, as if this was perfectly normal. Marcus had barely noticed Elena in the 6 months she'd worked for him. She was just another face among the staff who maintained his penthouse. Invisible, efficient, unremarkable. He knew she was 28, that she'd come from Mexico 5 years ago, and that his head of household had vetted her thoroughly. Beyond that, she was simply the quiet woman who cleaned his study and never made eye contact. But now, watching her sit in the rain, something nagged at him. Why wasn't she inside? His building had a staff break room. Hell, even a parking garage would be better than this. He grabbed his phone and called down to security. Thomas, there's someone in the courtyard. One of the household staff, Elena Reyes. What's she doing out there? There was a pause. Sir, I'm not sure. Shall I ask her to come inside?
No.
Marcus surprised himself with the answer. Just find out why she's there. He waited, binoculars trained on Elena, feeling oddly unsettled. She'd finished eating and was now just sitting, face tilted up toward the sky, letting the rain wash over her. There was something in her posture, not defeat, exactly, but a kind of quiet resignation that he recognized from his own reflection on the worst days. His phone buzzed. Sir, I spoke with the night supervisor. Apparently, Miss Reyes was told to leave the building by Miss Vanderbilt earlier this evening. Marcus's hand tightened on the phone.
What?
Your fiancé requested that Miss Reyes be removed from the premises immediately. The supervisor assumed she'd go home, but she's sitting in a storm instead. Marcus's voice was ice. Why would Victoria do that?
I don't know, sir.
Would you like me to? I'll handle it. Marcus ended the call, his mind racing. Victoria Vanderbilt, his fiancée of 8 months. Beautiful, poised, from one of New York's oldest families. Their engagement had been more merger than romance, her family's social connections combined with his money. It was practical, sensible, emotionless, exactly how he preferred things. But this? Throwing out a staff member in the middle of a storm? That was cruel, even by Victoria's standards. He'd always known she had a cold streak. It was one of the things he'd appreciated about her, actually. No messy emotions, no expectations of love or vulnerability. But there was a difference between being cold and being vicious. Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. He told himself he was just protecting his company from a potential lawsuit. If Elena got sick or hurt because Victoria had thrown her out, it could be a problem. This was damage control, nothing more. The rain hit him like a wall when he stepped outside. Within seconds, his expensive suit was drenched, his Italian leather shoes squelching in puddles. He crossed the courtyard to where Elena sat, and she finally looked up, her eyes widening in shock. Mr. Thornton. She scrambled to her feet, nearly dropping her empty food container. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'll leave. Stop. He held up a hand. Why are you out here? She looked down, water streaming down her face. He couldn't tell if she was crying or if it was just the rain. Miss Vanderbilt said I couldn't be in the building anymore. I didn't know where else to go. My shift doesn't end until 11 and I didn't have money for the subway yet. What happened? Marcus heard himself ask, surprising himself again. He didn't do personal conversations. He didn't care about staff drama. And yet, here he was standing in a monsoon, asking questions. Elena hesitated, then shook her head. It doesn't matter, sir. I'll go. I don't want to cause any trouble. You're soaked through. You'll get pneumonia. The words came out harsher than he intended. Come inside. But Miss Vanderbilt said. I don't care what Victoria said. Marcus realized it was true. This is my building. Come inside.
Now.
He turned and walked back toward the entrance, not checking to see if she followed. But he heard her soft footsteps splashing behind him, and something in his chest, something he'd thought had died years ago, twisted painfully. In the elevator, Elena stood as far from him as possible, dripping onto the marble floor, her body shaking with cold. Marcus found himself studying her reflection in the polished metal doors. She had delicate features, high cheekbones, and eyes that seemed too large for her face. There was a bruise forming on her left cheek that he hadn't noticed from the window. His jaw clenched. Did Victoria hit you? Elena's reflection met his eyes, then looked away. It was an accident, sir. She was upset. That's not what I asked. The elevator dinged, opening into his private penthouse. Elena hesitated at the threshold, looking like a cornered animal. I'm not going to hurt you, Marcus said, softer than he'd spoken to anyone in years. But you need to dry off and tell me what happened. Then we'll figure out where to go from there. Elena stepped inside, leaving wet footprints on his pristine floors, and Marcus realized that something had shifted. He'd opened a door he'd kept locked for 2 decades, and he had no idea what would happen next. Marcus directed Elena to the guest bathroom, providing her with a thick terry cloth robe and towels before retreating to his study. He poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, staring at the amber liquid as he tried to process why he cared. He'd built his entire adult life on not caring, on maintaining emotional distance from everyone and everything except his business. It had kept him safe. It had made him successful. So why was his hand shaking with anger over a woman he barely knew sitting in the rain? 20 minutes later, Elena emerged, her wet clothes in a bundle, the white robe drowning her small frame. Her hair was towel-dried but still damp, falling in waves around her shoulders. Without the soaking wet jacket and the hunched posture, Marcus could see how thin she was, too thin. The bruise on her cheek had darkened to purple. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. When she hesitated, he added, please. She perched on the edge of the seat like a bird ready to take flight. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. Tell me what happened. All of it. Elena's fingers twisted in the fabric of the robe. Mr. Thornton, I really don't want to cause any problems between you and Miss Vanderbilt. If I just leave quietly. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking you to tell me the truth. He paused, then added something he rarely said to anyone. I won't hold it against you. Whatever happened, I want to know. She took a shaky breath. Miss Vanderbilt came home around 6. She was in a bad mood. She'd been shopping and the store didn't have something she wanted in her size. I was cleaning the living room when she came in. Marcus nodded, remembering Victoria's temper when things didn't go her way. He'd witnessed it directed at servers, sales clerks, even her own friends. He'd always told himself it wasn't his problem, that everyone had flaws. She started looking through some papers on the side table. Elena continued. I'd organized them earlier. You'd left them scattered, and I thought I was being helpful. But she said I had no right to touch your personal things, that I was probably trying to steal information to sell to your competitors. Marcus's eyebrows rose. That's absurd. I tried to explain, but she got angrier. She said people like me were all the same, sneaking into wealthy homes, pretending to be trustworthy, waiting for the chance to betray. Elena's voice caught. She said I was probably illegal, that she should call immigration on me. I told her I have a green card, that everything is legal, but she grabbed my arm and said I was calling her a liar. The pieces were falling into place in Marcus's mind. Victoria's paranoia wasn't new. She'd accused her own assistant of leaking stories to gossip blogs, her personal trainer of selling information about her workout routine. But Marcus had always dismissed it as the eccentricities of old money, the kind of suspicion that came from growing up in a world where everyone wanted something from you. He understood that feeling all too well. When I tried to pull away, Elena said quietly, "She slapped me." Then she told security to throw me out immediately. She said if I ever came back, she'd make sure I never worked in this city again. Marcus set down his glass with a sharp click. And no one questioned this? Who would question Miss Vanderbilt? Elena's smile was sad. She's going to be Mrs. Thornton. She has the power here, not me. The words hit Marcus harder than they should have. Was that what he'd created? An environment where his fiancée could abuse people without consequences because of his name, his money, his power? "Why didn't you go home?" he asked. Elena looked down at her hands. "I live in the Bronx. It takes almost 2 hours on the subway, and I'd already spent my money for the week. I get paid tomorrow. I thought I could wait in the courtyard until 11 when my shift officially ended. Then I could explain to the night supervisor that there'd been a misunderstanding. Maybe he'd let me take the subway fare from tomorrow's pay. You were going to sit in the rain for 2.5 hours rather than ask for help." Who would I ask? Her eyes met his, and there was no accusation in them, just honest curiosity. Everyone here works for you and Miss Vanderbilt. Why would they risk their jobs for me? Marcus had no answer to that. He'd created a world built on fear and self-preservation, and now he was seeing the results reflected in this woman's resigned acceptance of cruelty. "The food you were eating," he said. "What was it?" She looked embarrassed. "Leftover rice and beans from lunch. I pack my meals from home. It's cheaper than buying food here. I'd finished my break earlier, but I hadn't eaten yet when Miss Vanderbilt sent me out, so I took it with me." Something in Marcus's chest cracked a little wider. She'd been fired, slapped, thrown into a storm, and she'd sat on that bench eating cold rice and beans like it was just another day. No tears, no drama, just quiet endurance. "Mr. Thornton?" Elena's voice interrupted his thoughts. "May I ask you something?" He nodded. "Why do you care?"
You don't know me.
I'm nobody." "You're not nobody," he said, and was startled by the firmness in his own voice. "You're a person who is treated unfairly. That matters. But it happens all the time. To people like me. Why does this time matter?" It was a good question. Why did this matter when he'd witnessed and ignored countless other injustices? When he'd built his fortune partly by being ruthless, by not letting sentiment interfere with business decisions. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it does." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Elena stood. "Thank you for letting me dry off and explain. I'll collect my things and go now." "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Thornton." "You're not going anywhere tonight," Marcus said. "It's still pouring, you don't have money for transit, and you're going to get sick if you go out there again." "I can't stay here." "Miss Vanderbilt. Victoria doesn't live here. She has her own apartment in Manhattan. This is my home, and I'm telling you to stay." He stood, moving to the doorway. "The guest suite is down the hall. It has everything you need. In the morning, we'll figure out what happens next." "What about my job?" Marcus looked at her directly.
You still have your job.
"Victoria had no authority to fire you. But we need to have a conversation about what kind of workplace I'm running and what changes need to be made." Elena's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly blinked them away. "I don't understand why you're being so kind to me." "Neither do I," Marcus said honestly. Then, after a pause, "When did you last eat a proper meal?" She looked confused by the question. Lunch, I guess. Cold rice and beans in the rain doesn't count." He pulled out his phone. "What do you like to eat?" "Mr. Thornton, you don't have to." "Elena." It was the first time he'd said her name aloud. What do you like to eat? She smiled tentatively. I haven't had a good burger in a long time. He ordered from the best burger place in the city, enough food for several people because he realized he didn't actually know what she'd like. When it arrived 30 minutes later, they sat at his kitchen island, something he never did, preferring to eat at his desk or not at all, and he watched her take her first bite of a meal she hadn't had to cook or save money for. The joy on her face was so pure, so genuine, that something in Marcus shifted fundamentally. When was the last time he'd felt joy over anything? When had he last allowed himself to feel anything except ambition and carefully controlled anger? This is amazing, Elena said, and then laughed, a sound like bells. I'm sorry, I know I'm being silly. You're not being silly, Marcus said. You're being happy. There's a difference. As they ate, Elena began to talk, tentatively at first, then with more confidence. She told him about her family in Mexico, her mother who cleaned houses and her father who worked construction. She'd come to America to send money home, to help her younger siblings get educations. She worked 3 jobs, his penthouse in the mornings, a restaurant in the afternoons, and weekend shifts at a grocery store. When do you sleep? Marcus asked. She shrugged. A few hours here and there. I'll sleep when I've saved enough to bring my family here legally. That's the goal. Marcus thought about his own goals, acquiring companies, increasing profit margins, maintaining his position at the top of the business world. When had he last worked toward something that would actually make someone happy? How much do you need, he asked, to bring them here? Elena looked uncomfortable. I'm not asking for anything, Mr. Thornton. I'm just explaining. I'm not offering anything. I'm asking a question. She named a figure that made Marcus's heart sink. It was less than he spent on a single suit, but at her current rate, working 3 jobs and sending money home, it would take her another 4 years to save it. For more years of eating cold rice in the rain. I see, was all he said. After they'd eaten, Elena excused herself to the guest suite. Marcus returned to his study, but he couldn't focus on work. Instead, he found himself pulling up her employment file, reading through information he should have known all along. Perfect attendance. Glowing reviews from the previous head of household. A note that she often stayed late to finish tasks without asking for overtime pay. Another note that she'd once found an expensive watch he'd thought was lost and had turned it in immediately instead of pawning it. She'd been invisible to him because he'd chosen not to see her.
His phone buzzed.
Victoria. He stared at it for a long moment before answering. Marcus, darling, did you hear about the awful incident with one of your maids today? Her voice was sweet, practiced. I had to let her go. She was going through your personal papers. Can you imagine? I couldn't risk her stealing something important. Elena Reyes is not fired, Marcus said coldly. She's still employed. Don't be ridiculous. I caught her red-handed. You can't seriously. I can. I did. This conversation is over. Marcus. Victoria's voice sharpened. I was protecting you. That girl is trouble. You can't trust people like her. People like her? He repeated dangerously. What exactly does that mean, Victoria? You know what I mean.
Poor.
Foreign. Desperate. They're always looking for an angle. Marcus thought about Elena sitting in the rain rather than asking for help. About her working 3 jobs to help her family. About the way she'd apologized for being happy about a burger. The only person I'm having trouble trusting right now is you, he said quietly. Good night, Victoria. He ended the call and sat in the darkness of his study, listening to the rain finally begin to soften outside. Somewhere down the hall, a woman he'd barely noticed was sleeping in his guest room, and somehow that felt more important than the billion-dollar deal he was supposed to be reviewing. Marcus Thornton, who trusted no one and felt nothing, was beginning to crack. And for the first time in 20 years, he wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. Marcus woke at 5 a.m. out of habit, despite only sleeping 4 hours. He'd spent the night wrestling with thoughts he'd kept buried for years, about the kind of man he'd become, about the empire he'd built on calculated coldness, about the woman sleeping down the hall who'd somehow become the mirror reflecting everything wrong with his life. He went through his morning routine on autopilot. Workout, shower, dress, and another expensive suit that cost more than Elena made in a month. When he emerged from his bedroom, he found her in his kitchen, already dressed in her dried uniform, quietly making coffee. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, looking startled. "I didn't mean to presume. I just thought it's what I normally do when I work here, and I wanted to be useful after you were so kind." "Elena." He crossed to the kitchen island. "You don't have to apologize for making coffee."
And you don't work today.
"It's Saturday." She looked confused. "But I always work Saturdays. I have the afternoon restaurant shift, then the grocery store in the evening." "Call them," Marcus said. "Tell them you're sick." "But I'm not. You will be if you don't rest." He gestured to the bruise on her cheek, which had bloomed into spectacular shades of purple and yellow overnight. "You were assaulted yesterday. You sat in the rain. Your body needs recovery time." Elena bit her lip. "Mr. Thornton, I appreciate the concern, but I can't afford to miss work. Every shift counts toward. I'll pay you for the day. Triple your usual rate for all 3 jobs." Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." "I can do whatever I want. It's my money." He poured himself coffee, aware that he sounded harsh, but unsure how else to express concern he wasn't practiced at feeling. "Besides, I need to talk to you about yesterday, and I'd rather do it when you're not exhausted and trying to rush to another job." She looked torn, her sense of responsibility warring with obvious fatigue. Finally, she pulled out her phone and made the calls. Marcus listened to her apologize repeatedly to each employer, making up a story about food poisoning, promising to make up the hours. It bothered him more than it should have, that she felt she had to grovel for a single day off. "Done," she said quietly. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I'll pay you back for the lost wages once." "You will do no such thing." He set down his coffee cup.
Sit.
"Eat something. Then we talk." He ordered breakfast delivered: fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, more food than 2 people could possibly eat. Elena protested that it was too much, but he ignored her. When it arrived, he was gratified to see her eat properly, not the hesitant nibbling of someone who'd learned to make little go a long way. "Better?" he asked when she'd finished. She nodded, looking almost guilty about the empty plate.
Good.
"Now I need to know something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Marcus leaned forward. "Has Victoria done this before? To you, or anyone else on the staff?" Elena hesitated, and he could see the internal debate on her face: loyalty versus truth, fear versus justice. "Elena," he said softly, "I can't fix what I don't know about." She took a deep breath. "She's not kind to the staff. She screams at people for small mistakes. She's thrown things when she's angry. Last month, she fired one of the housekeepers because her perfume gave Miss Vanderbilt a headache. The woman had worked here for 5 years." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, not the cold, calculated anger he used in business negotiations, but something hotter, more personal. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Would you have listened?" Elena's question was gentle, not accusatory. "Mr. Thornton, with respect, you barely notice we exist. We're supposed to be invisible. That's what good staff are, people who do their jobs without bothering you with problems." The truth of it stung. "That needs to change." "Why?" Elena looked genuinely curious. Why does it matter now when it didn't matter before? It was the same question she'd asked last night, and Marcus still didn't have a good answer. Or rather, he had an answer, but it was one that terrified him. "Because I saw you sitting in the rain," he said finally. "And I realized that I've spent 20 years building walls to keep people out, to keep from being hurt or betrayed. But those walls haven't just protected me. They've blinded me to what's happening in my own home, to people who depend on me for their livelihood." He stood, moving to the window. The city stretched out below, glittering in the morning sun. His kingdom of glass and steel. "When I was 12, he heard himself say, my father's business partner, his best friend, stole everything. Left us with nothing but debt. My father never recovered. He died angry and broken. My mother became bitter. They taught me that trusting people was for fools, that caring about anyone was weakness." Elena was quiet, letting him speak. I built all of this, he gestured at the view, by being harder than everyone else, by never letting emotions cloud my judgment. I thought I was being smart, strong. He turned to face her. But watching you sit in that rain, eating cold rice because you had nowhere else to go, I realized I haven't been strong. I've been a coward. You're not a coward, Elena said softly. You're just hurt. There's a difference. Something in her understanding made his chest ache. How do you do that? Do what? Stay kind. You work 3 jobs, you send your money home, you get slapped and thrown in the rain, and you're sitting here defending me. How are you not angry? How are you not bitter? Elena smiled sadly. Who says I'm not? Some days I'm furious at how hard everything is. But I learned from my mother that bitterness is a luxury. When you're fighting to survive, to help the people you love, you don't have energy to waste on anger. You just keep moving forward. That's not fair, Marcus said. You shouldn't have to just survive. You should get to live. Maybe. She shrugged. But fair is for people with choices. People like me, we take what we can get and try to make it enough. Marcus sat back down, a decision crystallizing in his mind. What if you had choices? What if things could be different? Elena looked wary. What do you mean? I mean, I want to make this right. Not just yesterday, but all of it. The way Victoria has treated the staff. The way I've been absent and negligent. He paused. I want to start by helping you bring your family here.
No.
Elena stood abruptly. Mr. Thornton, I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't accept that. I won't be in debt to you. It wouldn't be debt. It would be charity?
Pity.
Her eyes flashed. I have my pride, Mr. Thornton. It's one of the few things that's entirely mine. Marcus recognized the steel in her spine, the same quality that had let her sit in the rain with dignity. What if it wasn't charity? What if you earned it? She crossed her arms. I'm listening. I need someone I can trust. Someone to manage my household staff, to be my eyes and ears, to make sure what happened yesterday never happens again. The idea was forming as he spoke. Someone who understands what it's like to work hard, to care about doing things right. You have a head of household, Elena pointed out, who either didn't know Victoria was abusing staff or knew and didn't tell me. Either way, that's a problem. Marcus leaned forward. Work for me directly. Not as a maid, but as my household manager. The salary would be enough to cover your family's immigration expenses within a year, maybe less. Elena stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance. Just like someone once gave me when I was starting out. He thought of his first mentor, the only person he'd ever truly trusted, who died 10 years ago. You're smart, hardworking, and honest. Those are rarer qualities than you might think. But you don't know me. Not really. I know you sat in the rain rather than steal or beg. I know you work 3 jobs to help your family. I know you returned a lost watch worth more than you make in a year. Marcus smiled slightly. That's enough. Elena sank back into her chair, overwhelmed. This is crazy. Probably, he agreed. But I've built a billion-dollar company on trusting my instincts. And my instincts say you're exactly what I need. What about Miss Vanderbilt? She'll never allow this. Marcus's expression hardened. Victoria doesn't make decisions about my staff. And honestly, after last night, I'm questioning a lot of things about our relationship. Don't. Elena's voice was urgent. Don't blow up your life because you feel guilty about me. That's not fair to either of you. Is that what you think this is?
Guilt.
Isn't it? She met his eyes. You saw something that bothered you, and you're trying to fix it the only way you know how, with money and power. But tomorrow, or next week, things will go back to normal. You'll remember why you keep people at a distance, and I'll just be another employee you barely notice. Her words hit hard because part of him feared she was right. How many times had he been temporarily moved by something, only to let the feeling pass and return to his comfortable numbness? Maybe, he admitted. But what if you're wrong? What if this is the start of something different? Different how? I don't know yet. Marcus stood, offering his hand. But I'd like to find out. Will you take the job? Elena looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. He could see the war in her eyes, hope against cynicism, possibility against experience. Finally, she took his hand. One condition. Name it. If I do this, I'm not just going to smile and nod and tell you what you want to hear. If I see something wrong, I'm going to say so. Even if it's about you. Marcus felt a smile tug at his lips, a real smile, not the practiced ones he used in business meetings. Especially if it's about me. Then I accept. They shook on it, and Marcus felt the warmth of her hand in his, the calluses from hard work, the strength in her grip. For the first time in years, he'd made a decision based purely on instinct and feeling rather than calculation. It should have terrified him. Instead, he felt almost hopeful. When do I start? Elena asked. Monday. That gives you tomorrow to rest and figure out what you need to do this job properly.
He paused.
But first, we need to have a conversation with Victoria. Elena's face paled. Mr. Thornton, I don't think. She assaulted you. That's not okay, and she needs to know there are consequences. He saw her fear and softened his tone. I won't let her hurt you again. I promise. You can't promise that. She's going to be your wife. Marcus looked out at the city again, at the empire he'd built on loneliness and distrust. Actually, he said quietly, I'm not so sure she is. The confrontation with Victoria happened Sunday afternoon at her apartment in Tribeca. Marcus had called ahead, telling her they needed to talk. She'd assumed he was apologizing for hanging up on her, that he'd come to his senses about the Maid situation. She was wrong. Marcus had asked Elena to come with him, despite her protests. You deserve to hear this, he'd said. And she needs to see that you're not just going to disappear. Now they stood in Victoria's marble foyer. All cold white surfaces and expensive art that conveyed wealth but no warmth. Victoria appeared in a silk lounging set that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent, her blonde hair perfectly styled, even on a Sunday. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Elena behind Marcus. What is she doing here? Elena is my new household manager, Marcus said calmly. She'll be overseeing all my domestic staff from now on. Victoria's laugh was sharp. You're joking. I'm not. Marcus, this is ridiculous. I told you. She was going through your papers. She was organizing them. At her job. Which she still has. Marcus's voice was ice. What she doesn't have is a bruise on her face from being slapped by someone who had no right to touch her. Victoria's expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation. It was an accident. She moved, and my hand. Don't. Marcus held up a hand. Don't insult my intelligence or hers by lying. You hit her. You screamed at her. You threw her out of my building in a storm without any way to get home. You abused your power and my name to hurt someone who couldn't fight back. She's staff, Victoria said, as if that explained everything. They need to know their place. Their place. Marcus felt his anger rising. Their place is to be treated with basic human decency, which apparently is a foreign concept to you. Victoria's face flushed. How dare you speak to me like this in front of her? I'm your fiancé. Are you? Marcus pulled the ring box from his pocket, the 4-carat diamond he'd proposed with 8 months ago. Because I'm starting to wonder what this engagement is really built on. The color drained from Victoria's face. Marcus, you're being emotional. This is about business, about our families. That's exactly the problem, isn't it? This was never about love or partnership. It was a merger, a transaction. He looked at the ring, then at Elena, who was trying to make herself invisible near the door. But seeing how you treat people when you think I'm not watching, Victoria, you're cruel. And I'm tired of pretending that doesn't matter. She's turned you against me. Victoria pointed at Elena. This is what they do, these people. They worm their way in with sob stories and... Stop. Marcus's voice cracked like a whip. Elena didn't do anything except survive your abuse with more grace than you've shown in your entire privileged life. This isn't about her. This is about you and me, and the fact that I don't like who I am when I'm with you. Victoria's eyes glittered with tears, angry ones. You're going to throw away our engagement over a maid? Do you know how humiliating? I'm throwing it away because you hit someone weaker than you and felt justified doing it. Because you've been systematically cruel to my staff for months and I was too blind to see it. Because every conversation with you leaves me feeling colder and more cynical than before. He set the ring box on her console table. I'm throwing it away because I deserve better than this, and so do you. Better? Victoria laughed bitterly. You think you're going to find someone better? You, who trusts no one, who has ice water in his veins instead of blood. You're going to end up alone, Marcus. Just like you've always been. The words should have stung, but Marcus found they didn't. Maybe because he was beginning to realize that being alone and being lonely were different things. He'd been lonely for years while surrounded by people. Maybe, he said, but I'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes me complicit in cruelty. He turned to leave, gesturing for Elena to precede him. But Victoria wasn't done. It's her, isn't it? Her voice was poisonous. You're throwing me over for the help. God, Marcus, I knew you were cold, but I didn't think you were pathetic. Elena stopped, her shoulders stiffening. Before Marcus could respond, she turned around. Miss Vanderbilt, Elena said quietly, and there was steel underneath the softness. Mr. Thornton isn't throwing you over for me. He's throwing you over because of who you are. I'm just the person who helped him see it. How dare? I dare because I have nothing to lose. You already did your worst to me yesterday. Elena took a step closer. You hit me. You humiliated me. You threw me into a storm, and you know what? I survived. Because people like me were tougher than people like you understand. We have to be. Victoria looked stunned, as if she'd never been spoken to this way before. She probably hadn't. I don't want Mr. Thornton, Elena continued. I don't want his money or his power or his name. I just want to work hard, help my family, and be treated with basic respect. That's all I've ever wanted. And the fact that those simple things seem like too much to ask in your world, that says everything about you and nothing about me. She turned back to the door, and this time Marcus followed. Behind them, Victoria was silent. Maybe for the first time in her life, she had no comeback. In the elevator, Marcus looked at Elena with new appreciation. That was unprofessional. She looked mortified. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Magnificent, he finished. That was magnificent. Elena laughed shakily. I can't believe I just did that. I could have gotten fired. For standing up to someone who hit you? Never. The elevator opened to the lobby. Besides, you don't work for Victoria. You work for me. And I encourage honest communication. They stepped out into the spring sunshine, and Marcus realized he felt lighter than he had in years. Ending the engagement should have felt like failure. Instead, it felt like freedom. Where to now? Elena asked. Marcus checked his watch. Lunch. Actual lunch at a proper restaurant, not takeout eaten in my kitchen. Mr. Thornton, I don't think. Marcus, he said. If we're going to work together, you should call me Marcus. At least when we're not around other staff. She looked uncomfortable. That doesn't seem appropriate. Neither does most of what's happened in the last 2 days, but here we are. He smiled at her. Come on. I know a place that makes the best enchiladas in the city. You can tell me about your family, help me understand what I need to know to be a better employer. This is weird, Elena said, but she was smiling. What is?
You.
Being human. It's not what I expected. Marcus laughed, actually laughed, a sound that surprised him. It's not what I expected either. But I'm starting to think that's not a bad thing. They had lunch at a small Mexican restaurant in Queens, far from the Michelin-starred places Marcus usually frequented. Elena was stiff at first, clearly uncomfortable being taken to lunch by her billionaire employer, but gradually she relaxed. She told him about her mother's cooking, her father's terrible jokes, her siblings' dreams. She showed him pictures on her phone, a crowded, colorful house full of life and laughter. Marcus realized with a pang that he'd never had that. His childhood home had been beautiful but sterile, full of expensive things but empty of warmth. Even before his father's partner betrayed them, there hadn't been much love, just expectations and disappointments. What about you? Elena asked over dessert. Tell me about your family. There's not much to tell. My parents are gone. No siblings. No close relatives.
That's sad, she said simply.
It's practical, Marcus countered, falling back into old habits. No one to disappoint. No one to betray you. No one to love you either, Elena pointed out. That's not practical. That's just lonely. She was right, of course. But admitting it felt dangerous. Can I ask you something? Elena set down her fork. Why did you really end things with Miss Vanderbilt? Was it just because of what she did to me? Marcus considered the question. Partly. But also because watching her hit you, seeing how she treated you, it was like looking in a mirror and hating what I saw. You're nothing like her, Elena protested. Aren't I? I've spent years treating people as transactions, keeping everyone at arm's length, using power without thinking about the consequences. He met her eyes. The only difference is I've been better at hiding it. So, what changed? You sat in the rain eating cold rice, he said simply. And something in me broke. Or maybe it woke up, I'm not sure which. Elena studied him for a long moment. You know this can't fix everything, right? Hiring me, ending your engagement, buying me lunch. These are good things, but they don't undo 20 years of walls. I know. Marcus pushed his plate away. But it's a start. And for someone who hasn't started anything real in 2 decades, that feels significant. They walked back to his car. Marcus had driven himself, not wanting his driver to witness the confrontation with Victoria. The spring air was mild, the city alive with people enjoying their Sunday. Thank you, Elena said as they reached the car. For what? For seeing me. For caring enough to change. She smiled. My mother always says that people show you who they really are in crisis. Some people get smaller. Some people get bigger. You got bigger, Mr. Thor, Marcus. I had a good example, he said. You could have been bitter, angry, vindictive. Instead, you were dignified. That takes real strength. Or just exhaustion, she joked. It's hard to stay angry when you're working 3 jobs. 2 jobs now, Marcus corrected. Remember? You work for me full-time as of tomorrow. Elena's smile faded. Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once people know you broke off your engagement right after hiring me, they're going to talk. They're going to assume things. Let them, Marcus said. I've spent my whole life caring what people think, making decisions based on appearances and expectations. I'm tired of it. Easy to say when you're a billionaire. Harder when you're an immigrant who needs a green card renewed. He hadn't thought of that. Will this cause problems for you? Maybe. Probably. She shrugged. But it's still worth it. The job, I mean. The chance to help my family. I'll deal with whatever gossip comes. Marcus made a mental note to talk to his lawyers about expediting Elena's citizenship process. If people were going to talk anyway, he might as well give her the security to weather it. They drove back to his penthouse in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Elena gathered her few belongings, her dried uniform, her empty food container. I'll see you tomorrow, she asked at the door. 8 a.m. We'll go over everything you need to know.
He paused.
And Elena? Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to be honest with Victoria. For being brave enough to take this job. He struggled for words. For helping me remember what it feels like to care about something besides profit margins. Elena's eyes softened. You're welcome. But Marcus? Don't make me into some kind of savior figure. I'm just a person trying to survive and help her family. I can't fix you. I know. He smiled slightly. But maybe you can remind me that I'm worth fixing. After she left, Marcus stood at his window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably calling her friends, spinning the story to make herself the victim. His business rivals would hear about the broken engagement and smell blood in the water. He should care. He should be strategizing, planning damage control, thinking 3 moves ahead. Instead, he was thinking about a woman who sat in the rain with dignity, who spoke truth to power despite having none, who reminded him that there was more to life than winning. Marcus Thornton, who trusted no one, was beginning to trust again. and it terrified him almost as much as it thrilled him. The first month of Elena's tenure as household manager was a revelation for both of them. For Marcus, it meant seeing his home and himself through new eyes. For Elena, it meant navigating a world she'd only observed from the outside while trying to maintain her sense of self. She started by interviewing every member of the household staff privately, a task that revealed the extent of Victoria's reign of terror. The stories came haltingly at first, then in a flood. Verbal abuse, impossible demands, firings over trivial mistakes. One housekeeper broke down crying, confessing she'd been stealing food because Victoria had forbidden staff from eating anything in the house, even items about to be thrown away. Elena compiled everything in a detailed report that she presented to Marcus one evening. He read it in silence, his jaw tightening with each page. "I enabled this," he said finally, "by being absent, by not caring enough to notice." "You're noticing now," Elena replied. "That's what matters." They implemented changes together. New policies protecting staff from verbal abuse and arbitrary dismissal. Fair wages and overtime pay. A staff break room with free food and drinks. An open-door policy for grievances. Marcus even started eating lunch in the staff dining area once a week, making himself accessible in a way that initially terrified everyone but gradually built trust. "You're really doing this," Elena said one day, watching him chat with a housekeeping team about their families, remembering their children's names. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might try, and then realize it was too hard. That changing who you've been for 20 years was too much work." Marcus looked at her seriously. "It is hard. Every instinct I have tells me to retreat, to rebuild the walls. But then I remember why I'm doing this."
Why?
Elena asked. He wanted to say because of you, but that felt too raw, too dangerous. Instead, he said, because I'm tired of being the villain in my own life story. The changes extended beyond the household. Marcus started reviewing his business practices, looking for places where he'd prioritized profit over people. He discovered a subsidiary that was using questionable labor practices overseas and shut it down, taking a significant financial hit. His board was furious, but he held firm. "Since when do you care about ethics over earnings?" one board member demanded. "Since I realized that the person I was becoming wasn't someone I wanted to be," Marcus replied. The media had a field day with his broken engagement. Victoria gave interviews painting herself as the victim, claiming Marcus had become unstable and obsessed with inappropriate relationships. The gossip blogs ran wild with speculation about Elena, publishing unflattering photos and digging into her background. Marcus wanted to sue them all, to use his power to shut down the stories. Elena stopped him. "It'll only make it worse," she said. "Let them talk. The truth will come out eventually, and meanwhile, we know what's real." "They're hurting you," Marcus protested. "They're making you out to be a gold digger? A homewrecker?" "I know." Elena smiled without humor. "But I've dealt with worse. At least I'm getting paid well for the gossip this time." Her strength amazed him. While Victoria was giving tearful interviews and posting cryptic social media messages, Elena simply went about her work with quiet dignity. She ignored the whispers, the pointed looks, the photographers who occasionally camped outside Marcus's building. But Marcus saw the toll it took. The way she tensed when they had to appear together in public. The exhaustion in her eyes after a particularly brutal tabloid article. The night he found her in his study after hours, crying silently over a piece about her family. "They published photos of my parents' house," she said, wiping her eyes. "They made it sound like a slum. They're shaming my family for being poor." Marcus sat beside her, wanting to comfort her, but unsure how. He'd spent so long not touching people, not offering physical comfort, that it felt foreign. But he put a hand on her shoulder, and she leaned into it slightly. "I'm going to make them print a retraction," he said. "It won't help. They'll just write another story." She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Maybe I should quit. Go back to being invisible. This is too much." "Is that what you want?" Elena was quiet for a long moment.
No.
"I love this job. I love helping the staff, making real changes, feeling like I matter. But I hate what it's doing to my family. My mother called crying because reporters showed up at her door. Marcus made a decision. What if we gave them the real story? What do you mean? An interview. Together. We control the narrative, explain the actual truth, that you're a dedicated professional who earned this position, that my engagement ended because of Victoria's behavior, not because of you. Elena looked skeptical. You think people will believe that? Some will, some won't. But at least we'll have told our truth. He paused. And maybe it'll take some pressure off your family if we're upfront about everything. They did the interview with a respected journalist, known for fair reporting. Marcus talked about his broken engagement honestly, about realizing that a relationship based purely on social advantage was hollow. About the incident with Elena opening his eyes to problems he'd ignored. About wanting to be a better person and employer. Elena spoke about her work, her family, her pride in earning her position through merit rather than connections. She was poised and articulate, and Marcus watched the journalist's skepticism fade as Elena's genuine character shone through. And is there anything romantic between you two? The journalist asked directly. No, they said simultaneously. It was the truth. But Marcus felt the words stick in his throat, because somewhere in the last month, something had shifted. He found himself looking forward to their morning meetings, where Elena would arrive with coffee and they'd review the day's tasks. He lingered in conversations about nothing important, just to hear her laugh. He noticed details, the way she twisted her hair when thinking, the small scar on her wrist from a childhood accident, the way her whole face lit up when she talked about her family. He was developing feelings for her, and it terrified him. After the interview aired, public opinion began to shift slightly. There were still plenty of critics, but there were also voices defending them, pointing out that two adults working together professionally shouldn't be automatically assumed to be having an affair. It helped, Elena admitted a few days later. My mother said the reporters left. Some of her friends even called to say they saw the interview and thought I seemed very professional. You are very professional, Marcus said. You're also the best hire I've ever made. Elena laughed. I've been here a month, Marcus. Don't you think that's a bit premature?
No.
In 1 month, you've transformed my household, made my staff actually like working here, and saved me from a marriage that would have made us both miserable. He looked at her seriously. You've also made me think about things I've spent 20 years avoiding. Like what? Like whether being safe and being happy are the same thing. He paused. They're not, are they? No, Elena said softly. Being safe is about protecting yourself. Being happy is about opening yourself up, even when it's scary. And you think I should choose happiness? I think you should choose what feels true. She met his eyes. What does feel true, Marcus? He wanted to tell her. Wanted to say that she felt true, that these morning meetings and late-night conversations felt more real than anything in his carefully constructed life. But he'd employed her. He had power over her livelihood. Saying anything would be inappropriate, possibly predatory. So instead he said, I'm still figuring that out. Elena nodded, and something flickered in her expression. Disappointment, maybe, or relief. He couldn't tell. The moment passed. They went back to work, to the comfortable professional relationship they'd built. But something had cracked open between them, and Marcus wasn't sure either of them could ignore it much longer. That weekend, Elena invited him to a family dinner. My cousin is visiting from Mexico, she explained. My mother wants to thank you for helping me, and I thought, well, you said you don't have family. Maybe you'd like to borrow mine for an evening. Marcus accepted, surprising himself. He'd spent years avoiding intimate social situations, preferring the shallow interactions of business dinners and charity galas. But the idea of meeting Elena's family, of seeing her in her own environment, was irresistible. He dressed down, jeans and a simple shirt, and took the subway to the Bronx, waving off his driver's confused offer to take him. Elena met him at the station, looking nervous. I should warn you, she said as they walked to her apartment. My family is loud and nosy. They're probably going to ask you inappropriate questions. I'm a billionaire, Marcus said. People ask me inappropriate questions all the time. Not like my tia Rosa. She has no filter. The apartment was small, packed with people, and filled with the smells of home cooking. Elena's mother, a tiny woman with Elena's eyes, hugged Marcus like she'd known him for years. Her father shook his hand firmly, sizing him up with a look that said no amount of money would impress him if Marcus didn't treat his daughter right. The evening was chaos in the best way. Kids running around, multiple conversations happening at once, people switching fluidly between English and Spanish. Marcus found himself seated at a crowded table, eating the best enchiladas he'd ever tasted and fielding questions from Elena's family. Tia Rosa did indeed ask inappropriate questions. "So, you really not dating our Elena? Because my daughter, she's single, very pretty."
Tia.
Elena's face flamed red.
What?
"I'm just saying, a man like him, he needs a good woman. Not those fake society girls." Marcus laughed, actually laughed, as Elena covered her face in embarrassment. "Your daughter is lovely, I'm sure, but Elena and I work together. It would be inappropriate." Inappropriate. Rosa waved her hand dismissively. "Love doesn't care about appropriate." "Tia Rosa, please," Elena begged. But her aunt was relentless. "You think we're blind? The way you talk about him, Mija. The way he looks at you. That's enough." Elena's mother interjected gently but firmly. "Mr. Thornton is our guest. We don't interrogate guests." The conversation moved on, but Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Rose's words. The way he looked at Elena. Was it that obvious? After dinner, Elena walked him back to the subway. "I'm so sorry about Tia Rosa. She means well, but she has no boundaries." "Don't apologize." "It was." Marcus searched for words. "It was wonderful. Your family is wonderful. They're loud and overwhelming and full of love," he finished. "Your apartment probably costs a tenth of what mine does, but it's 100 times warmer. You're lucky, Elena." She smiled. "I know. They drive me crazy sometimes, but they're everything to me." They reached the subway entrance. Marcus didn't want the evening to end, didn't want to go back to his pristine, lonely penthouse. "Elena," he said, before he could stop himself, "your aunt wasn't entirely wrong." "About what?" "About the way I look at you." He saw her eyes widen. "I know I shouldn't say this. You work for me, there's a power dynamic, it's completely inappropriate. But I need you to know that what I'm feeling, it's real. It's terrifying and confusing and probably a terrible idea, but it's real." Elena was silent for a long moment. Then, "Marcus, I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me." He nodded. "I have feelings for you too. I've tried not to because, like you said, it's complicated. But every morning when I come to work, I'm excited to see you. Every conversation we have feels important. When you smile, really smile, not that business smile, my heart does this stupid flutter thing." She took a breath. "But I can't act on these feelings, and neither can you. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because right now I need this job more than I need a relationship. My family's immigration paperwork is in process because of your help. If things got complicated between us and went wrong, I could lose everything." Her eyes glistened. "In a year, when my family is here and my position is secure, when I'm not financially dependent on you, then maybe we could explore this. But not now." It was the mature, sensible answer. The right answer. And it broke Marcus's heart. "A year," he said. "A year," she confirmed. "Can you wait that long?" Marcus thought about the 20 years he'd spent alone by choice, frozen and afraid. What was one more year, if it meant a chance at something real? "Yes," he said. "I can wait." Elena smiled through tears. "Thank you for understanding. Thank you for being honest." He touched her cheek gently. "And for what it's worth, your heart isn't the only one doing stupid flutter things." They stood there for a moment, on the edge of something beautiful and impossible. Then Elena stepped back. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Elena." He watched her walk away, then descended into the subway. The train ride back to Manhattan felt longer than usual. When he finally reached his penthouse, it was as empty as ever, but somehow it felt different. For the first time in 20 years, Marcus Thornton knew what he was waiting for. And for the first time in his life, he believed something good might actually be worth the wait. Spring returned to New York, bringing with it hope and new beginnings. Marcus stood at his window, the same window where he'd first spotted Elena sitting in the rain, and marveled at how much had changed in 12 months. His household ran smoothly under Elena's management. His business had taken some hits from his new ethical stances, but profitability had rebounded as consumers responded positively to his reformed practices. The staff turnover in his building had dropped to zero. People smiled when they saw him now, instead of tensing up. But the biggest change was internal. Marcus had started therapy, something he would have scoffed at a year ago. He was learning to recognize and process emotions instead of suppressing them. He was rebuilding relationships with extended family he'd cut off years ago. He was slowly, painfully learning to trust. And through it all, Elena had been there, not as a romantic partner, but as a friend, colleague, and anchor. They'd maintained strict professional boundaries, never crossing the line they'd drawn that night outside the subway. But the connection between them had deepened anyway, built on daily conversations, shared victories, and mutual respect. "Mr. Thornton?" His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your 2 p.m. is here. Send them in." Elena entered, as she had 1,000 times before, carrying a folder and her ever-present coffee. But today something was different. There was a glow about her, an excitement she was barely containing. "They're here," she said simply. Marcus's heart leapt. "Your family?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "They landed this morning. My mom, my dad, my brother and sister, they're all here, Marcus. They're really here." He wanted to hug her, to share in her joy physically. But he held back, maintaining the distance they'd agreed upon. "That's wonderful, Elena. You must be so happy." "I am." She wiped her eyes. "I can't even put it into words. After 5 years of being apart, they're finally here. And it's because of you." "It's because of you," Marcus corrected. "You did the work. You earned this." "We both know that's not entirely true. The lawyer you connected me with, the expedited paperwork, the apartment you helped me lease." "Which you're paying for yourself, with the salary you earn," Marcus interrupted. "I may have opened doors, Elena, but you walked through them on your own merit." She smiled through her tears. "Always so insistent on that point. Because it's important. You're not a charity case or a project. You're a brilliant professional who deserves everything you've achieved." Elena set down her folder and looked at him seriously. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "It's been a year. My family is here. My position is secure. I'm not financially dependent on you anymore."
She paused.
"So, why haven't you said anything?" Marcus's breath caught. "I wasn't sure you still had feelings for you?" Elena laughed softly. "Marcus, I've been in love with you for months. I thought you knew. I hoped, but I was afraid to assume. And I was waiting for you to make a move, to show me that what you said a year ago wasn't just a moment of impulse." She stepped closer. "So here we are, both waiting, both afraid." Marcus closed the distance between them, his heart pounding. "I'm not good at this. At feelings and vulnerability, and all the things that normal relationships require. I'll probably mess it up." "Probably," Elena agreed. "And I'll call you on it when you do, because I don't believe in pretending everything's fine when it's not. I'm still learning to trust. There will be days when I retreat into old habits. And I'll be patient, because I know where those habits come from." She reached up and touched his face. "I'm not asking for perfect, Marcus. I'm just asking for real." "I can do real," he said softly. "You taught me how." "Then stop talking and kiss me already."
So he did.
And it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been but had always belonged. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them aware of the significance of crossing this line. But then Elena's arms came around his neck and Marcus pulled her closer, and gentle became passionate, tentative became certain. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena laughed. "That was worth waiting a year for." "Only a year?" Marcus smiled. "I'd say it was worth waiting my whole life for." Careful, Mr. Thornton. You're getting dangerously close to romantic. I have a good teacher. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. I love you, Elena. I think I have since the night I saw you sitting in the rain, but I was too afraid to admit it. I love you too, even when you're being stubborn and emotionally constipated. Marcus laughed, that full, genuine laugh that had become more common over the past year, but still felt new and wonderful. Emotionally constipated? My Tia Rosa's phrase. She says you needed a good woman to help you work through your issues. She was right. Marcus grew serious. Elena, I know we're just starting this, and I know I have a lot to learn about being in a relationship. But I want you to know that I'm committed to doing the work, to being the kind of partner you deserve. I know you are. That's why I love you. She looked at her watch. Speaking of which, I need to go meet my family at the apartment. Help them settle in.
Go.
Be with them. Marcus kissed her once more. But Elena? Bring them to dinner tomorrow night. I want to officially meet them as your, what are we, exactly? Well, I'm still technically your employee, so. Not anymore. Marcus had been planning this. I'm promoting you to Director of Household Operations for all my properties. It's a position that reports directly to the board, not to me. Different chain of command. Elena's eyes widened. Marcus, you can't restructure your company just so we can date without a conflict of interest. I'm not restructuring the company. I'm creating a position that should have existed all along. You've proven you can do the work. He smiled. The fact that it also means I can take you to dinner without worrying about HR issues is just a happy coincidence. You're impossible. I'm in love. There's a difference. She kissed him again, quick and sweet. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. And Marcus? Wear jeans. My family doesn't care about your suits. After she left, Marcus returned to his window. The courtyard below was empty, the bench where Elena had sat in the rain still there, a reminder of where this journey had begun.
His phone rang.
His therapist for their weekly session. Dr. Chun, Marcus answered. You're not going to believe what just happened. Try me, she said warmly. I told her I loved her, and she said it back. Elena? Yes. Marcus, that's wonderful. How do you feel? He considered the question, something he'd gotten better at over months of therapy. Terrified, excited, vulnerable,
Happy.
all of it at once. That's what love feels like, Dr. Chen said. Messy and complicated and wonderful. What if I mess this up? What if I hurt her? You might. You're human. But you'll also apologize, learn, and do better next time. That's what growth looks like. After the session, Marcus sat at his desk, trying to work but unable to focus. His mind kept replaying the kiss, the feel of Elena in his arms, the way she'd said she loved him. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo from Elena's family dinner last month. He was in the center, surrounded by her parents, siblings, cousins, and Tia Rosa making bunny ears behind his head. He looked happy. Genuinely, unreservedly happy. When had he last looked that way? Maybe never. His assistant knocked. Mr. Thornton? The Peterson merger documents are ready for review.
Later, Marcus said.
I'm done for the day. She looked shocked. Marcus never left early. But he was learning that there were more important things than work. He went home. No, not home. Home was where Elena would be. He went to his penthouse, showered, changed into jeans and a casual shirt, and then headed to the Bronx. Elena's family was chaos, as always. The apartment was full of suitcases, people talking over each other in rapid Spanish, kids running around. Elena's mother was crying happy tears while cooking enough food to feed an army. When Marcus appeared in the doorway, everything stopped. Mr. Thornton. Elena's mother rushed over. You came? Elena said you were busy. I was never too busy for family, Marcus said, and realized he meant it. Welcome to New York. All of you. Elena appeared from the back room, surprise and joy written across her face. Marcus? I thought you had work. It can wait. He crossed to her, and in front of her entire family, kissed her. Nothing's more important than this. Tia Rosa hooped. I told you. Didn't I tell you? Elena laughed against his lips. You're going to regret this. They'll never let us live it down. Good, Marcus said. I don't want to. That night, squished around a too small table with too many people, eating home-cooked food and listening to stories in two languages, Marcus Thornton felt something he'd never experienced before. Belonging. He belonged here, with these people who'd welcomed him despite his billions and his baggage. He belonged with Elena, who'd seen past his walls to the person underneath. He belonged to himself, finally, after years of being a stranger in his own skin. Later, as he and Elena stood on her tiny balcony looking at the city lights, she leaned her head on his shoulder.
Thank you, she said.
For what? For watching me eat in the rain. For caring when you could have just looked away. Marcus wrapped his arm around her. Thank you for sitting in that rain. For being exactly who you are. For saving me from a life I didn't realize I hated. We saved each other, Elena said simply. And she was right. He'd given her opportunities and security. She'd given him humanity and hope. They'd found each other in the storm, two people who'd been surviving instead of living, and together they'd learned to do both. I have something for you, Marcus said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elena tensed. Marcus, if that's what I think it is. It's not. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant. It's a raindrop. To remember where we started. She touched it reverently. It's beautiful. So are you. He fastened it around her neck. And before you worry, no, this isn't me trying to buy your affection. It's me trying to mark this moment, this feeling. 1 year ago, I watched you in the rain and my life changed. Today, you told me you loved me and my life changed again. I want to remember both. Elena turned to face him, tears in her eyes. You know what the best part is? What? We're just getting started. All the changes, all the growth, that's just the beginning. Is that a promise or a threat? Marcus teased. Both. She kissed him. Loving me won't be easy, Marcus. I'm stubborn and opinionated, and I won't let you hide from your feelings. Good. I don't want easy. I want real. Then you're in luck, Elena said, because real is the only thing I know how to be. They stood together on that balcony, two people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd turned pain into purpose and loneliness into love. Behind them, Elena's family laughed and talked, already planning their new life in America. Ahead of them, the city glittered with possibility. Marcus Thornton had spent 34 years building walls and making money and trusting no one. It had taken a woman eating cold rice in the rain to show him there was another way to live. And now, with Elena's hand in his and her family's acceptance warming him like the sun, Marcus finally understood what his therapist had been trying to tell him for months. The bravest thing you can do isn't protecting your heart. It's opening it. He was opening his heart now, fully and completely, and it was terrifying and wonderful and absolutely worth it. What are you thinking? Elena asked, watching his expression. That I'm the luckiest man alive. You're a billionaire who dated a supermodel. Is this really that different? Yes, Marcus said firmly. Because for the first time, I have something money can't buy and power can't guarantee. I have love. Real love. The kind that makes you better instead of smaller. Elena smiled, that beautiful smile that had become his favorite sight in the world. You're getting really good at this feelings thing. I have a good teacher, he said again, pulling her close. From inside, Tia Rosa called out, You two lovebirds.
Come eat.
The food is getting cold. Elena laughed and tugged Marcus toward the door.
Come on.
You're about to learn that in my family, refusing food is an insult. I'm starting to understand why you're always pushing me to eat, Marcus joked. 3 jobs and immigrant parents. Food is love, Marcus. Remember that. As they rejoined her family, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in a mirror by the door. He looked different, younger, lighter, more alive. The cold, distant billionaire had given way to someone softer, someone capable of joy. He'd thought watching Elena in the rain had been the moment everything changed. But he'd been wrong. That had been the beginning. This, standing in a crowded apartment, surrounded by love and laughter and the smell of home cooking, this was the change itself. And Marcus Thornton, who'd spent his life afraid of change, had never been more grateful for anything in his life. The rain had stopped months ago, but what it had started, what Elena had started, would last forever. 1 year after finding each other in a storm, Marcus and Elena were building something beautiful, a life based not on power or money or social standing, but on trust, respect, and love. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges ahead, merging their vastly different worlds, dealing with public scrutiny, navigating the complexities of a relationship built from such unusual circumstances. But they would face it together. Two people who'd learned that the greatest courage isn't protecting yourself from pain, it's opening yourself to love. And that made all the difference.